that government is best which governs least. When you first heard these words, what thoughts came to your mind? How many rules did you follow this morning? You likely stopped at red lights, paid your taxes, and filled out documents according to set procedures. From the moment we are born, we are integrated into a massive system called the state. While this system protects us, it sometimes Nashville crashes against our deepest inner self, our conscience. About 175 years ago, a young writer made a simple yet shocking choice in the face of that conflict. He refused to pay his taxes, he stood against the state, and he went to prison. His name was Henry David Thoreau. The single essay he wrote based on that experience would later ignite the spirits of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Today, we dive into that story. When law and conscience collide, what choice must a human being make? Let's begin. In 1846, the United States was at war with Mexico. On the surface, it was a territorial dispute, but in the eyes of many intellectuals, it was a clear war of aggression. Deeper down lay an even older evil slavery. The United States, founded on the ideals of liberty and equality, was a paradoxical nation that simultaneously treated millions of black people as mere property. Thoreau could not turn a blind eye to these two realities. He began refusing to pay the poll tax in Massachusetts, a tax levied on every individual. This was not a simple case of tax evasion or mere rebellion. For Thoreau, paying taxes was equivalent to signing his consent to the state's injustices. He asks, unjust laws exist, shall we be content to obey them? Or shall we endeavor to amend them, and obey them until we have succeeded? Or shall we transgress them at once? 5 years later, this question still aims straight at our hearts. In a democratic society, we often treat the majority vote as the ultimate truth. We assume that if more people agree, it is right. If fewer people agree, it is wrong. But Thoreau directly challenges this premise. We should be men first and subjects afterward. Let that sentence sink in. Humanity comes before the state. Conscience comes before the law. Thoreau argues that just because the majority makes a decision, it does not necessarily make it just. In history, slavery was legal, genocide was a state command, and discrimination was protected by law. All of these once held the consent of the majority. What then should be our standard? Thoreau's answer is firm conscience, that inner voice. Even if it is uncomfortable, even if it makes you a minority of one, conscience is not something to be compromised. This is why civil disobedience is read not merely as a political essay, but as a philosophical text that questions the very foundation of human existence. In the summer of 1846, Thoreau was arrested by the local tax collector of Concord and spent a night in jail. During that night, his longtime mentor and friend, the philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson, came to visit him. Through the iron bars, Emerson asked, "Henry, why are you in there?" Thoreau replied quietly, but with absolute clarity, "Waldo, why are you out there?" This brief exchange encapsulates the entire essence of civil disobedience in just 2 sentences. In an unjust era, being inside a prison can actually be the most morally upright position. Under a government which imprisons any unjustly, the true place for a just man is also a prison. This is not a message of despair. Rather, it is a declaration of the most intense hope. The fact that Thoreau's single night in jail became the seed that led the Indian independence movement and the American civil rights movement proves it. What, then, does Thoreau's voice have to say to us today? We are living in an era of the most sophisticated surveillance and control in human history. Our smartphones track our location, algorithms predict our thoughts, and countless customs and systems whisper to us that this is just the way things are. Yet Thoreau does not tell us to fight unconditionally. He speaks of nonviolent resistance. After reading Thoreau, Gandhi launched a nonviolent civil disobedience movement against the British Empire. After reading Thoreau, Martin Luther King Jr. took to the streets to fight racial discrimination. What they learned was not the method of anger, but the language of conscience. Even at this very moment, those who quietly speak up against unjust workplace practices, those who stand alone against the prejudices of the majority, and those who refuse to turn away from uncomfortable truths, they are all the descendants of Thoreau. Revolution has always begun within the conscience of a single individual. The next morning, after his night in jail, Thoreau was released because someone else had paid his taxes for him. He was reportedly disappointed. He felt his act of resistance had been patched up all too easily. Yet, had he not written about that experience, there might have been no Gandhi, no Martin Luther King Jr., and no Nelson Mandela. A single night of disobedience became an idea that changed the world. Civil Disobedience is not a book that teaches rebellion. It is a book that teaches human responsibility. It does not tell us to ignore the law, but to never turn away from what stands above the law, justice, and conscience. Now, before we end today's video, let me leave you with one question. If your conscience collided with the law or the opinion of the majority, what choice would you make? Please share your thoughts in the comments. There is no right answer. However, the act of asking yourself that question is already the first step Thoreau hoped we would take. Like Thoreau by the shores of Walden Pond, I hope you take a moment today to listen to the voice within